Hey everybody, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. I've got a monster here from TP-Link. The Archer AX11000 is arguably one of the most powerful monster routers you can buy on the market today. And honestly, it is probably massive overkill for most people, so it sort of falls into that category of because I can and why not. You can get some pretty impressive bragging rights with this thing. We've got the latest in Wi-Fi 6 technology. I'll go over some of the stuff on the box, but there's a lot of reflection here with the plastic, so let me get the plastic off first. Alright, I got the plastic off, so no more reflections. Looking at the feature set across the front of the box, we've got game accelerator, game dashboard, and this is interesting here, 10 gigabits per second ultra Wi-Fi speeds, but if you notice there's this little footnote indicator there, which usually tells you to read the fine print, because even though it says 10 gigabits per second, usually what that means is that's spread across all three bands. This is a tri-band router, and no single device will be able to obviously run on all three bands at the same time, so you got to make sure you realize that you're not going to get that speed on any single device. Moving right along, we've got a 1.8 gigahertz quad-core CPU, which is definitely a good thing. And over here we've got 2.5 gigabits per second WAN, or your wide area network port. So that's also interesting. And then swinging around to the side of the box here, and you can sort of see some of the details here. And then swinging around to the back of the box again, our Wi-Fi spec there is the 802.11ax. And again, it talks about the 10 gigabits per second. We've got our little footnote again, so we'll see exactly what they mean there. 4 times greater capacity to link more devices. This is really nice. Of course, your devices have to be compliant with your latest Wi-Fi specs, your Wi-Fi 6. So if they're not, you're not going to get quite the blazing fast speeds that a compliant device would, but at least you will be future-proof so that when you do get the devices that are compliant, you've already got a router that can handle it. Then we've got accelerate gaming connection, so we've got some sort of a gaming accelerator built in. We'll access that through the interface. Keep elements security. I think they mean keep elements secure, but it's got a built-in virus checker, virus scanner there to sort of filter stuff out. And then over here we've got know your network, so we can look through the Wi-Fi traffic statistics, which I really like to be able to do. And then finally, again, looking over here on the other side of the box, ports, we've got a USB 3.0 Type A port. We also have a USB 3.0 Type C port, which is really nice. But another thing that really is a deal maker for me is we've got 8 gigabit LAN ports. Most routers come with 4. Some of your higher end routers will have 8, but that's a big point for me. We've got a 2.5 gigabits per second WAN port. Now you might say, well, who's got an internet service provider that's giving you that kind of a speed coming in? Not very many. In fact, I'm not even aware of any. But again, if you do have that in the future, you will be able to take advantage of that already with this router. So you're really setting yourself up to be future-proof with this router, even if you can't use all of the features. And we've got setup and management made easy, so again, we can log into this system. We've got a nice web interface, and then the TP-Link Tether, which again is your phone app, so you can access the router. Usually there are some more restricted features that you don't quite get the full set like you do when you log into the router directly from your computer, but we'll take a look at that. And I almost forgot to mention that it is compatible with Amazon Alexa. Oh, sorry Alexa.
Don't worry about it.
Yes, I keep forgetting. I'm missing things here. 2-year warranty, which again is really nice. So let me finish getting this out of the box. And here we go. So it looks like we've got a nice Ethernet cable. I'm guessing this is the power supply. Yep. And just for giggles, let's see, it is a 12 volt, 5,000 milliamps, so it's a 5 amp, 12 volt power supply, so it draws a fair amount of juice. course, a router this size, that's not really a surprise. I should say 5 amps are available. I don't know that it would draw the full 5 amps. All right, well, I'm going to mount the camera here so I can actually use both hands. All right, got both hands free. Much better. All right, so the body itself is about 9.5 inches square, and with nothing on it, just the bare body, it sits about a little under 2.25 inches high. So the bottom of the router here, we've got these 4 rubber feet to keep it from sliding around and reduce any vibration. Not that this thing is really going to ever vibrate, but we also have 4 key slots, so you can mount this thing to a wall if you'd like. Looking at, let's see here, there we go. So over here, this is what I really like. We got these 8 gigabit ports. It says link aggregation, so we'll talk about that a little later, but you can combine a couple ports to get some higher speed. There's a little recessed reset button over here off to the side that you would use like a little paper clip or something to push that if you need to reset the router. Over here, this is the input. So this would come from your modem typically, and it's a 2.5 gig wide area network or WAN port. Again, most internet service providers aren't going to get at that speed, but if you ever do come across one, again, your router here will handle it. And on the right, there's a power button, and then there's the socket to put power in. And of course, you can see the antenna attachment points, so we'll get those out here in a moment. Looking at the top of the router, I like the design. The picture on the box here, it actually looks kind of silver. That may just be the way the light is shining on it, but it's definitely all black. And then looking at one side, there's not much going on there. Other side over here, this is for your, looks like we can turn your LEDs, so there must be some lights that light up here. And then you can, this is for your connectivity to certain Wi-Fi devices if you have to sort of manually set them up. Just about every router I've got has had these on it. I've pretty much never used them, but it's nice to have them. And then these are your external ports here. Again, your regular USB 3.0 and then the USB Type-C. And we're back to the Ethernet section. And looking at the router body, again, something I wanted to point out. You can see the bottom is fully ventilated. All the way to the very edges there at each corner. You can almost see through it. And then the top is also ventilated. So you always want to have good airflow. You don't want to put this on top of something that restricts air access from the bottom. You don't want to set anything on top of your router. I have a cat that likes to sleep on top of the router, my other routers, in the wintertime because they're warm. I always have to chase the cat away because you don't want to block those ventilation holes that carry the heat away. And inside the box here, these are the antennas. And you can see that just sort of pops on there. And the last thing in here really is just the power cord. And there's a quick start guide, quick installation guide. Most of the router setup is, there you go, you can see all the explanations. Usually these routers are pretty much set up from the factory. The factory defaults are enough to get you going, and then you can go in and make the tweaks. So we'll see how well that goes here in a moment. I also want to point out the TP-Link website has a nice page dedicated just to this particular router, so you can go in there and check the details out there if you need some more clarification. But I need to get these antenna connected before I power it up. And the connections here, there's nothing threaded, there's nothing to screw on. They just press on, they just pop right on. So kind of line that up and then push it on. It's a little stiff and it pops back off the same way. There's a little resistance. They're not going to fall off at all. They're on there pretty good. The thing to mention though, some routers, these individual antennas, you can bend them and adjust them all different angles. And these are not. These are pretty much fixed. Once you press it on there, it really isn't meant to be angled or twisted or anything like that, just so you know. So I'll get the rest of the antennas attached. And like I said earlier, I was really expecting the top of this to be silver. It looks that way in the pictures on the website, and it looks that way on the picture on the front of the box, but that's really just the way the light is reflecting. I'm not disappointed, I was just expecting silver. And sometimes, you know, the picture on the box, when the prototype stuff is done and then the actual production piece might look a little different, but I think this is always intended to be completely black. So we have a nice black and red gaming theme, which I am a big fan of. I like the Asus, or Asus, however you pronounce it, ROG series of gaming motherboards and hardware, which is black and red and has been for a long time. I like that theme, so this really goes right in line with that. So first impression there, this is a nice looking router. Alright, so I got the thermal camera out here. It's about 25.8 Celsius, which is around 78 degrees Fahrenheit in the room. So what I want to show here, you can see the top of the router. It does get a little warm there. And I'm not saying this is a problem at all, I'm just showing you the importance really of keeping the vents on top of the router and the bottom clear. So you want to make sure you've got adequate air coming underneath the router. And of course it's warmed the table up there so you can see the heat reflecting off of that. But again, you want to keep it clear, so you don't want to set anything on top of it. If you have any pets who like to curl up on a warm router in the winter, you might want to discourage that. Alright, so one thing that is really cool is you download the Tether app to your smartphone, and then you can access your router from anywhere. Now, when you're at home, you need to be on the same Wi-Fi network as your Archer, but when you're out and about, you can access it over your cellular data, which is really nice, so you can log in and check what's going on with your router. Now, something to keep in mind, though, is you can access it through one device only. So if you have your smartphone connected to it, then you can't get to it on your PC. You can't just dial in your IP address. Or if you use the router's IP address to access it, then it bumps you out of your phone app. But this is really cool. You can access every aspect. You can get in there and check and see what's going on with the router. You can make changes, make adjustments. This is just really nice. I love it. Okay, so this is the screen that you see when you log into your router, and you do that first by typing into the address bar 192.168.0.1. That's the default IP address, and you'll get this screen. Of course, you have to log in with your username and password. After that, though, you'll see this screen. If you look at it, you've got a lot of good information here. You can do a speed test and check your upload and download speeds. Click over here on the router itself, and you get all of your router information. Down here at the bottom, we have our Ethernet port layout, and you can see all of your ports, what's connected to them, or at least the speed, I should say. Port number 2 and port number 3 here, those can be connected through link aggregation. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. The next one over here is you can look at your clients. So now you can see what is connected to the router. The game center here, now this is a little interesting because we have things such as the game accelerator, and I'll talk about that a little more later, but you can basically configure which device you want to be prioritized, specifically if you're gaming. There's the game protector here. Really, this is just access to your antivirus and your parental controls. I don't know why it's really under the game heading, but it is. Smart Game Assistant. This here you can use Alexa to do some voice commands. You can enable that. Again, kind of a neat thing, but I don't know how much I would really use it personally. Here's where you set up your VPNs if you need any virtual private networks. Here's where you do the port forwarding. And then your game diagnostics. Really, again, why does it say game there? Because diagnostics is just, this is pretty generic. There's nothing really specific to gaming, but that's what they call it. So the next one over here is the internet. So now you can look at your internet setup here. all of your wireless information when you set up your wireless networks. I like to have the little question marks here that you can click on those, and it sort of gives you a little explanation on some things. It'd be nice if it did it on more, but you can get a little bit of an explanation if you're not sure what something does. And then finally over here at advanced, this is where there's a lot going on. It's a little overwhelming actually. Most of this stuff is most of this is stuff that you don't ever really touch. And then your operation mode, this is where you set up if this is going to be an access point, meaning you actually have another router that's your main system router, and then this guy here, your AX11000 would be going along for the ride and just be basically a wireless access point. It's not assigning any IP addresses or anything. I don't know why you would do that if you've got a router like this. I would think you'd want to use it as your main one. But you make the change here and then you hit the save button and it does a reboot and comes back in the new mode. And that's pretty much it. And one more thing I'll say here about the access point mode. When you put the system into access point mode, your menu options are greatly reduced because it's no longer functioning as a router, it's functioning as an access point. So you'll notice that you don't have nearly as many options. As far as link aggregation is concerned, you can actually tie the two ports, port number 2 and port number 3 together. Click this little box. And what that does is basically you get all the bandwidth of the two connections. It treats them as one single connection. And some devices, like certain NAS servers, for example, will have dual Ethernet ports that you can configure on the device and on this router, and you need to make sure both of them are configured to be used in link aggregation for it to really work. But it's one way to move a little more data or get a little more bandwidth. All right, so I have spent a lot of time with this router. You know, you can't just open the box, fire it up, and try to review it and be done. You really need some time to really put it through its paces. I've had up to 68, almost 70 devices, including 30, maybe 35 cameras attached to this thing at the same time. I've had no problems with it at all, no dropped connections, really no issues. What I really like about it, not just the fact that it doesn't give me any problems and it's easy to set up, but the fact that it has the 2.5 gig input there. So if you have super high speed internet, even though nobody's really pushing 2.5 gig just yet, but this one will handle it. You've also got the ability to have 8 Ethernet ports on the back, which I think is, where's the back of this thing? Oh, of course it's over here. So that to me is a deal maker because it's hard to find a router with that many Ethernet ports built in. They're out there, but they're not a whole lot available like that. Right now, pricing on this, now this is not a cheap router. It's rather expensive. It's a little on the high end. This is on Newegg now. I saw it for $425. Look around because you can find deals, but this is really not just a router you buy just to have a router. This is something you buy because you want the top of the line, the king of the hill kind of router. As far as Wi-Fi signal strength, I've been as far as 120 feet away, and really it's all about line of sight. The fewer objects, walls, garage doors, refrigerators, things like that are between you and your source of Wi-Fi, then the better off you will be, the fewer issues you'll have with connectivity. And I'm out here in my studio, and I've been outside, like I said, approximately 100, 120 feet away, and I'm still able to get signal. I'm still able to connect and not have any issues. And one thing I'll say here about gaming, you know, I think a lot of that is a marketing strategy. If you slap some fancy colors and the name gaming on a lot of these hardware components, the idea is that it's going to make you a better gamer or make your games work better. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I don't know that it makes that much difference. At least I couldn't really tell really that much of a difference. But if you want the absolute king of the hill, a real monster of a router that has just a ton of capabilities, well, this is the one for you. Again, it comes in around $425, so it will kick your wallet pretty hard. Still, I would give this the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award. So check this out if you're into the top of the line. This is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.